Hello Internet, welcome to a new series. We are going to be playing Crusader Kings 3. I struggled a lot with deciding where to begin this game. My initial impulse was to play as East Anglia, just because I've been reading a lot about some English history recently. But I think we're going to do something of a Norse campaign here. And yeah, we're going to be starting in this area here. Now, before we even begin, it's a great time to tell you, I watch other YouTubers play this game. None of them know how to pronounce the names, and frankly, neither do I. So I apologize to like my Swedish, Finnish, Icelandic, all the peoples of this general, area, because I'm going to be mispronouncing your names. In fact, what are the nations here? Okay, Norway. I was thinking Finland, but that's obviously not correct. Norway and Sweden, for instance, probably going to offend some people with my mispronunciations. However, we're going to jump into what I'm going to refer to as Nedens, and I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. So I picked, it was between Nedens and Vestfold here, and I've decided to go with Nedens, really for no reason other than because it's a little bit further away from some of these more powerful nations, and it will give us a little bit of a buffer. If you've never seen Crusader Kings 3, we will go through the UI and things at least a little bit just to explain so people who have never seen the game before can enjoy the series, but we're going to jump into it as Nedens. And this is the game screen that we will be seeing the most. I tend to play, I like seeing the nations kind of bordered out with these various colors. If you zoom in too far, it becomes the terrain map mode, which I really don't like very much. So we'll mostly be playing at this distance or even further out. And then we get this lovely paper map when we go fully zoomed out. You'll see there are quite a few nations out here already, people that we will have to compete with, although we will obviously be very focused on the Norway region for the time being. So we will talk about the UI and things as we go. For now, it's important that we take care of some of our basic requirements. We get these pop-ups at the top of the screen alerting us to important things that we might want to take care of. So before we unpause, we'll be dealing with that. One of our first things to do, though, we want to go to war basically immediately. We have 564 military soldiers at our disposal, and that is more than our neighbors. Although this guy is close to our power level, so I think we'll be taking out Telemark rather rapidly. Plus, this is also a powerful kingdom, so I think that not a kingdom, excuse me, I do have a little bit of problem with the various language you need for distinguishing different rulers, so that may be an issue moving forward. But they're a powerful nation, kingdom, province, I don't know what you call it, but they will be probably looking to move in on weak neighbors as well, and their weakest neighbor is our weakest neighbor, so we want to take control of Telemark as soon as possible. But we'll do that once we unpause. So for now, we have no lifestyle chosen, so this is a new feature in Crusader Kings 3. It's really quite neat. There were lifestyles in the previous game, but they were much less fleshed out, and in fact, this is probably my favorite aspect that they have added to Crusader Kings 3. So we get to choose a lifestyle, which will reward us with various perks and perk trees depending on which thing we choose. You'll see we had a martial education, so we get bonus points for going into martial, which is military might. And in fact, because we're a Norse nation and it's the early game, might is where we want to be anyway. You'll see because we're an older character, we do start with quite a few of these perks unlocked. Unfortunately, I don't care too much about strategists. Gallant is a focus on knights, so we're going to go with Overseer, which is about rulership and kind of being a dictator more than anything else. So we're going to focus on this tree, but we do get to pick one of three main focuses. All three give a bonus, various bonuses to our experience level. So simply having one will increase the experience we get towards perks in this tree, but they all do different things. So this will increase our martial stat. Martial will affect the number of men we have at our disposal, among other things. This one focuses on dread gain, which is how much people are afraid of us, which is pretty important. It also increases our control on provinces. Control is important. It determines the taxes and things that you get from unruly provinces. The higher the control in a land that we control, the more rewards we will get from that. And then the chivalry focus is focused on like personal combat prowess, and advantage, which makes us better when we're leading armies, but we are not going to be leading armies. So I think we'll go with the authority focus. We do have the option to change this over time, but we'll probably stick with control until we die. We are an older ruler, so it's not, unrealistic that we might die in the first, handful of episodes here and get replaced with our heir. So we've taken care of that. We'll discuss this more once we get points and we're kind of looking at what to upgrade. What else do we have? Our heir is currently unmarried, which means our son does not have a wife, so our son will not be producing children. And we want him to produce children because we need to secure our dynasty so that even if our character dies and then our son dies, we want someone to carry on our legacy so that we can keep playing the game. So we want to get him married, but we also have our ruler being unmarried, and I would rather get our ruler a wife first. That way we can kind of pick and choose, and then our son will take kind of our backup choice. Now, there are a lot of factors in who to choose for marriage. For our aging ruler, it's not super important that he have a lot of children, so we could pick an older woman. He's already 55. So we could pick someone past their childbearing years. Another important factor is the stats of our wife. They will be contributed to our rulership. It will help us do various things in our empire. Secondarily, her culture and religion are important as well. We are a Norse people. That is our culture group. And we are currently, forgive me, a Satru. I don't know how to pronounce any kind of names in this area. I'm going to bring that up over and over because I'm so sorry. I don't mean to insult anyone. So we are Norse and we have this religion. If we were to marry, let's say, someone from England, they would be from a different culture group, which would be, I don't know, Welsh, I guess, in this particular area. That makes sense. This is obviously where Wales is. And then they would be a different religion, which would cause a lot of friction between us and our wife and make her not like us. Plus, I think they're probably less likely to accept a marriage proposal. So we ideally want someone who is Norse and of the same faith as us. Age is a factor for childbirth and how long this woman will live. So we'll pick someone who is acceptable and then just turn them loose. Their stats also matter because some stats are congenital and can be passed to our children. So if we get someone who is albino, for instance, here's an albino individual, that could potentially be passed on to our children, which will give our children this same albino trait. Now, in general, that's not great because people don't like albino people in this game. In fact, people in this game really like to hate everyone who's different than them, so we want to avoid things like that if we're able. The other benefit of marrying someone is that it can form an alliance. There's no alliances in this game. I can't just contact Upland and say, hey, let's be in an alliance. It doesn't work that way. The only way you can forge an alliance with another ruler is to marry into their family. So if I, for instance, marry my ruler to Upland's daughter or sister or something like that, that would potentially form an alliance between us. And in fact, you'll see that is what this indicator means, is that we would potentially get an alliance out of this marriage. With the Isle of Man, it's interesting that the Isle of Man is currently controlled by the Norse, a Norse character. That makes sense. It's the Duke of the Isles, or whatever your name is, Jarl of the Isles. So we could potentially form an alliance with them. They're pretty far away, so they're not really going to benefit us if they come to war with us. And then we have a potential alliance with Orkney. Can I jump to the Kingdom of Orkney? We have to hold briefly for this to pop up. Kingdom of Orkney. Can I just go see? Oh, I see. The Isles out here. Again, I would have thought this would be controlled by a Catholic religion, but they appear to be Norse. So we don't really want an alliance with either of them. It's not really going to benefit us in any way. They're not going to come to protect us or anything like that. And really all we want to do is avoid forging an alliance with someone we want to go to war with. So for instance, we would not marry the child of someone from Telemark because that could potentially forge an alliance. Then we would be unable to attack them. Not only that, but they're pretty weak, so they're likely to get into war, which would drag us into a defensive war trying to protect our ally possibly. So we don't want that. So we'll ignore the marriage aspect, the alliance aspect, and just look for someone with decent stats. I love the name Astrid. That's such a great name. If I had to pick a name for my daughter, I would probably pick the name Astrid. It's one of my favorite female names. She's quite good at learning, but that's not super important as a skill. I would like someone who's a little bit more militarily focused to benefit our military process. or stewardship focus would also be good. So here we have Margaretta. She's pretty acceptable. Does she have any terrible traits? She seems fine. She's wrathful, which is fine. And she is lowborn, and what that means is that because we're a landed person and we have areas under our control, if we marry a lowborn character, we will lose some prestige. People will look down on us a little bit. She will gain prestige from that because obviously she's marrying up, but we're marrying down. So it can be a little bit of a relevant factor, but I don't really care too much about that. You know what? That sounds fine. Where did you go? I lost you here. This character here, Alvor. Sure. No, this is not who I was looking at. Who was I just looking at? You know, on second thought, I do think we'll just marry someone from one of these kingdoms here. None of them are good at martial, really. You're lowborn as well. You know what? This she's fine. Copy. You're fine. Let's just marry her. Again, it's not super relevant for our character because we're kind of past, she's older. She doesn't have to be super relevant from a childbearing perspective, and we just want someone to marry. So we do get some negatives for marrying a lowborn character. There's a low chance of children because she is older. We are older, things like that factor in. But we don't need our current ruler to have that many children. We want more our child to have many children. So let's get married, and then let's marry our heir as well. Our son can marry. Yes, let's find him a proper childbearing age person. Oh, you are excellent at martial. You would be very, very good as a wife. You are a little older. I would prefer to marry someone younger just to stretch out potential childbearing years. And she's quite good at stewardship, which will increase our taxation and things and the amount of land that we can hold. So that is also pretty valuable. And she's 23, which means she has a lot of years of childbearing ahead of her. She will end up disliking him a little bit because she is stubborn. That's okay. She's, you know what, and it gives her a small health boost, which means that she will live a little bit longer. Quick is very good as well to get as a congenital trait for our children. She's a little bit older. She also has good stewardship. I think we'll just marry Ghidra here. She's Lithuanian. Oh, she's a different religion. Both of them are. No, I don't want a different religion. Sort by religion. Can I do that? Sum of all skills. Opinion of you. Alliance power. No, apparently you can't sort by religion, which seems silly to me because I would like someone of our faith. Let's try to just look at possibles in our faith. That albino is actually a pretty good character. I just don't want to marry an albino and possibly have albino children. Here's a 20-year-old, decent stewardship, decent stats. Just marry her. I just honestly, and this is a terrible thing to say out loud, I just want a baby maker essentially at this point. So we're just gonna marry our child so that he starts manufacturing children. So let's take a look at some of these other alerts. We will try to get to war in this episode just because I know taking care of this stuff can be a bit boring. We could take some concubines. This will also increase our chance of producing children. And in fact, as a Norse character, if we don't have enough concubines, people will look down on us for being a ruler with too few concubines. I would prefer to take concubines who are a little older. That way we wouldn't necessarily produce a lot of children and clutter our heritage as we pass down our titles, but don't really see a way around that. So we will take a few concubines. We will take 2 concubines because I believe that is enough. Currently under the seemly number of concubines for someone of your rank, take more concubines to negate the prestige penalty you're currently suffering. I believe 2 should be enough. We'll dismiss that for now. Our heir can marry. We've already dealt with that. We can create the Duchy of Agder. That is a conversation for another time where we will discuss the layered mechanics of land ownership in Crusader Kings. But I would really like to get to war because I know some of that's going to be dense and boring. So let's ignore that for the time being. We would not be able to afford to make the duchy anyway. We are currently not endorsed by our Gotti. What that means is that we have a religious person on our council. This person, who is terrible, by the way, and we're going to replace him as soon as possible. This person controls the religious aspect of people in our kingdom. or in our domain, I should say. And because of that, they're not contributing taxes or men to our cause because he does not like us very much. See, he has a -2. We could easily bump that beyond -2, get his approval, but I don't really care about this because he's terrible. So we're just going to replace him. So we don't need to worry about that right now. Plus, we don't have any religious holdings at the moment. We just have these 2 tribes that are currently under our control. You'll see we have a lot of empty land here, and we will develop that over time and increase our taxes and our levies and things like that. But for the time being, we don't need to worry too much about the religious aspect. We have too few champions. Champions are special units that exist in our army. They can do special things in combat and help turn the tide of the battle. We're not super worried about that. They cost money to recruit. We have the maximum we can currently do. We have one. We could recruit one more person. We don't really have the money to do so. You'll see here it costs 3 gold. Actually, that's not bad at all. So we will recruit that man. Who will now become a knight in our army. He's terrible. Prowess is the measurement of how good they are, and you'll see they're terrible. I would also not like my son to be one of these. I don't want my son to get killed in combat. So we've forbidden him from being in combat. We don't want him to get killed. Plus, he, again, is terrible. So we don't have the maximum number of champions, but we did nip that in the bud by preventing our son from getting killed. We can declare wars as a Norse character. We have a lot of more freedom with declaring war than some of the other nations. So for instance, if we were in Cornwall here and we wanted to go to war with Wessex, we would need to have a claim on one of their land or something like that, or they would have to be a heathen or something that we could go to war with them. As a Norse character, I can basically attack anyone I want. I could go over here to Opland and just declare war, essentially, because I could... Oh, I'm sorry, no, they have to be adjacent to you, I believe. So, for instance, we want to declare war on the guy in Telemark. We can just say we're coming to take this because we're Norse. Similarly, because we're Norse, we can also invade, like, I believe, any coastal province that we want to that is of a different religion. So we have a lot of freedom as this particular culture group to attack and kill whoever we want and take whatever land we want. That may also be something about our paganism, but I'm pretty sure it's Norse and not the religion. I believe it's our culture group. So, taking care of most of these things, we could fabricate claims. Claims are the basic level of, like, determining who will... You know what? We'll discuss this in the next episode. For now, let's get into something a little bit more fun. Let's declare war. So we know that Telemark is weaker than us. They only have 300 soldiers. We have nearly twice that number. Our other neighbor is a little bit stronger at around 500. So the battle could potentially swing in their favor if we attacked in unfavorable conditions or something like that. So Telemark is the weakest person that is directly near us. Now, unfortunately, taking Telemark will put us up against Vestfold, which have a fair number of men and are about our strength. So if we lose a lot of men in combat, we could potentially be pretty weak for Vestfold to take over. But I think we'll be fine. So we're going to declare war on Telemark. Just to take a look, they have also only one single tribe. It's the very early start in this game. We're at 867 AD, which means there aren't a lot of, like, temples and cities and things like that. Everyone is pretty tribal, especially in this particular region. So by doing this, we will gain control of another tribe, which at the very least will increase the number of men that we can recruit for war, as well as eventually giving us better taxes. So we're going to click this guy. We're going to declare war on him. We have quite a few options, but the one we want to use is the Conquer County Casus Belli, and we'll talk about a Casus Belli at some point in the future. It basically is a justification for why we're going to war, and we can just say we're going to war because we want this county. We want this county to become our county. Here we see an overview of what their strength is, and in order to declare war on someone, there are certain requirements in the realm of cost. Now, because this guy is the same religion and culture group, he is of our faith. Because he is the same religion as us, it will cost us 100 piety in order to declare war, because it's not really appropriate for us to go to war with our same faith neighbor. However, this is negated by the fact that we're tribal, which means we have a lower cost for going to war. And then we have the Bella Justum trait, which is a trait given to us by our... Okay, so sometimes it takes a minute for the windows to lock. Because we have this perk from our lifestyle, we actually get a 50% reduction to our Casus Belli cost. So it only costs us 25 to go to war. If this guy decided to declare war on us, it would cost him 50 because he would not have that trait. So we're going to declare war on Telemark. First thing we do is raise all of our armies. And they will raise at the rally point. That is another change from Crusader Kings 2. Instead of raising in every territory that you control, they will now rally at a singular point. I both like and dislike that for, various situations, but it's okay. So it takes time for our men to rally, and we got our men, our full force. So we're going to quickly move them into Telemark. If we could beat them there before he raises his army, which we're not going to do. I accept your marriage proposal. Your son and heir Tor and my acquaintance Ursa will be married in holy matrimony. So there our son was successfully married, and Cappy has accepted us as her husband. There are some things we can do with that now that we have a wife. We will have her doing things in our kingdom, and because we picked someone with pretty middling traits, we can either have her assist us in general, or we can select a specific area we would like her to help us with. I think this early in the game, it really is just focus on war, because that will help us. I believe that increases our levies and things when she starts doing that. Plus, she will get pop-up events surrounding her. Because she's good at martial, she will get pop-up events that may benefit us. So you'll see their army knows that they can't take us, so they're going to retreat. And because of this particular landscape, we actually have a tactical advantage. If they wanted to attack us, these mountains are impassable. What that means is that they're moving up here. We're going to block into this area. They can't come through to attack our lands. The only way they could come attack our lands is to go around on a boat, which will take time, or to go through our army, which they're not going to do. So we should be able to... Oh, we caught them. I was going to say we should be able to win without any... I hate this. It automatically puts our ruler as leading armies, and we were immediately wounded. And wounded is really bad, because it could lead to our character being killed. So I'm really upset with myself for not removing him from leading that army. It's that micromanagement stuff that Paradox games have that I'm not really accustomed to. So we are going to win this. Unfortunately, because we had to fight them, we lost quite a few men. We unfortunately lost one of our allied combatants slain. So one of our soldiers? Were you... Yeah, one of our champions was killed in that combat. And again, our character got the wounded trait, which is very bad. You'll see it has a severe health penalty. What that means is that our character's health has gone down, and that is the determining factor in how long we live, what kind of events we get regarding our health, etc. So that's really bad. That should go away in time and stop being wounded. After a while, we'll get like a scar or something instead. So that was a really unfavorable combat for us. We did manage to capture the religious leader of this particular province. Now what we can do with this prisoner, we have a couple of options. Because he is just not really important, we could just... It doesn't really matter. If we had captured like the ruler of this area in combat, we would have 100% war score and we could just win this already. We could just have them surrender because we've captured their leader. Because he's not that important, it's a little bit more limiting. We could try to ransom him and try to get his liege to pay us some money in exchange for his release. The liege is unwilling to do that, unfortunately. It looks like it's because... It's because he is not a very important person. Which is interesting because he's referenced as the Gotti, which means he is currently a counselor on his council, so I don't know why he doesn't care about him. But he's unwilling to pay, and unfortunately that means we can't really do much with him. We could just leave him to rot. We could just let him go, or, and here's the fun part, we can execute this guy. Now, as a pagan, we actually get piety for sacrificing people to the gods. So every time we execute someone, we're actually going to gain some piety. Piety is used to declare war, as we saw earlier, but it also represents kind of the religious, how much we care about our religion. Higher piety is better than low zero piety, but piety is one of the less important stats, so we're not super concerned with that. We will execute him. It will give us some dread and some piety. Dread, again, is just a measurement of how fearful people are of us. So, for instance, if we had vassals under our control and we killed a whole bunch of people, got our dread really high, they would be way less likely to go against us because they would be afraid of this madman that is in control of ruling this little nation. So we're going to execute this guy. Sorry, bud, you're getting beheaded. It's unfortunate. So we executed him. We got some piety from that, which we'll use to declare wars in the future. And now our army begins to siege the province. Now, unlike Crusader Kings 2, where you just moved into the province and you sieged, in this game, this province is actually broken down into these multiple holdings. So here you'll see it kind of highlights in white which one I'm selecting. Now this area has 3 locations for like congregations of people. So like there could be a temple here, a city here, and a barony here. But it's not very developed. So all that's here is this one tribal holding. So all we have to do is move our army to this holding, and they will gradually siege it down, which will give us war score, which will bring us closer to being able to end the war. We don't want this right now. So at the moment, we are sieging. So let's take a look at sieging. The number one important thing this early in the game for sieging is that we need to have more men on this tile than there are in the garrison. So inside of this little tribe here, this is their standing army that's out fighting. But inside of this little area, there is also a series of men that are defending the holding. So in here, we have 292 men that are currently in the garrison. In order to siege down the garrison, we have to have more men than they do. And we do, which is great. Sometimes you will end up in a situation like this guy, even if he made it back here to attack us, he doesn't have enough men. You'll see we have 277 men in the garrison of each of these locations. He doesn't even have enough to siege us, so even if he made it to our land, he can't do anything to us, and he's never going to beat the war score that is required. So for us, we're sieging. Sieging takes time, and we'll crank up the speed to get this, more quickly advanced. But for now, sieging takes time. We are getting progress daily based on a lot of factors. Currently, we don't really have any modifiers, so it's just a flat 1 per day. So each day, we're progressing towards taking this for ourselves. Then in addition to that, down here, you'll see that the garrison is currently fully stocked, and there are everyone is healthy, and the walls are intact. Now, as time progresses, we will get little mini pop-ups and little rolls that this makes that will determine all of the state of these things. So, for instance, we have nothing currently. There could be all of a sudden their food spoils, so they lower their supplies, which means the siege will progress more quickly because the defenders are running out of supplies. Similarly, there can be outbreaks of disease. There can be wall breaches. You'll see here it requires siege weapons, which we don't currently have this skill or money for. And there are a lot of factors that go into this, but basically, as long as we have enough men and we sit them on this tile, they will eventually siege this down. So let's unpause and turn up the time a little bit. I don't really care what this army does. If they were a larger army, we would be concerned about our own holdings. But again, we have a kind of a tactical advantage in the landscape here, and we know that they can't properly siege our buildings. So we just need to wait it out. You'll see here we got a stalemate, which means it had no effect on the siege. And then every 20 days or whatever, we'll have another tick. Our chiefdom of Agdecide, which is this one, gained focused recruitment for 10 years because my spouse is very good at martial. So this gave us plus 25% levy size, which means we could now raise more men from this location than we could previously because it's having, where do we see the effect? No. I guess we don't see the effect, but we know that it exists, so we would get increased levies from those men for the next 10 years, which is pretty great. Oh, here it is, focused recruitment. We get 25% increased levies. So the levies here, I don't know what they were previously, but they're increased by 25%, and this happened because she's good at martial. Now, my wife doesn't like me very much, so I think, why don't we try to get her to like us? Why don't we romance her? We have 0%. Why? Why? Why 0? She really doesn't like us, huh? 0%. Why? Why though? Oh no. Is she gay? Does she just not like us? I think she just doesn't like us. I don't see anything about her being gay. But the 0% chance is interesting. What about seducing her? 25%. So she just doesn't love us, huh? Maybe because I'm wounded? Whatever, I'll take being your lover. So we'll start. Basically, a scheme is like a long-term attempt at doing something. So we're scheming to try and seduce our wife, which sure. So we'll wait for this siege to tick up. Here we got the starvation, which means their supplies have decreased. You'll see it's a one-time increase of siege progress by 10%, and we get those ticks every 20 days. Another one. Now we got the plus 30%. So you'll see the bar has jumped up quite fast. They are going to go around to occupy our lands. I believe they can raid, which will give them some loot and stuff, but I don't think that they can actually... I mean, I know they can't progress the siege. Once we finish the siege, we will complete our war here, and we'll call the episode. So here we have successfully finished the siege. Now, there's a couple things we could do based on what we've seen. So we already know that she inspired recruitment, and we won the siege. It gave us 15 gold, which we took from sacking the province. And we also took a prisoner. Now, we could just end the war. You'll see down here this little coat of arms symbol with the crossed swords. This represents how far along in the war we are. We're at plus 100%, which means we can now enforce our demands and take this property for ourselves. But we have captured this ruler's son and his daughter during the siege of Telemark. So, if we end the war, we basically just hand him his kids and he'll get, like, removed from the area. But if we don't end the war, we can first ransom his children back to him or execute them for piety. Is this his heir? It is his heir, so he will pay a lot for him, probably. Or he would pay a lot. He probably, because he's a child and they're not very high up, they don't cost very much, but there's a very good chance he would accept. You'll see it's plus 200 because it's very important to him. So he will guarantee to give us 10 gold, and when we only have 30 gold, 10 gold is pretty significant, so we'll ransom his son. We also have his daughter, who is 10. Can't ransom because we're waiting for him to respond to our initial ransom. He has accepted. Great, and we will try to ransom his daughter as well, and if we can't, we will maybe just execute her for piety. Executing a 10-year-old is, not something I thought I'd be talking about today. Let's ransom 7 gold because she's worth way more. Why is she worth so much more? The last kid was only 10. She's dear to him. So we could ransom him for 7 gold, or we could just execute her for more piety. I know this is dumb. I know it's just a game, but executing a 10-year-old girl, I don't know if it's because there's a 3D model or what, but I just don't feel comfortable doing it. So I think we're going to, which I probably will flip-flop on, by the way, in the next couple of episodes. I bet we end up not accidentally, but I bet we eventually flip-flop on that and decide to kill these kids. But for now, I'll take 7 gold, wait for that response, accepted the ransom offer, and now that we've gotten some extra gold out of it, we're going to go ahead and take this property. You'll see we can now enforce our demands because we have the plus 100% war score. We will gain 75 fame. Fame is prestige, I believe. Fame. Each point of fame increases their progress towards the next level of fame. When a character gains prestige, they also gain some amount of fame, an equal amount of fame. Oh, I see. So not prestige, but actually contributing towards our level of fame. I believe this applies to our whole dynasty, so like we get to pass some of that along to our children. And we will also get 75 prestige, which is just sort of, prestigious, how prestigious we are, which is a representation of how much people look up to us, that sort of thing. And this guy will lose a bunch of prestige. We don't really care about that. So we'll enforce our demands, and we'll make sure we have the game paused. To the abhorrent chieftain Kjotva, I don't know how to say things. May your years be short and miserable. You are a much greater foe than I imagined. In order to put an end to this bloodshed, I will comply with your demands. Look, man, be glad I didn't murder your children. Like, frankly, is what you should be. You should be thanking me that I didn't just murder your 10-year-old daughter when I had the opportunity to do so. And all I did was take your land and release you into the world. So be it. And you'll see we have now absorbed Telemark into our rulership, into our domain. So, pretty great. There are some things we need to take care of, but I think we're going to call the episode now. We can release our men, send our men back home. 443 will be disbanded. And this is important because our men will restock over time, so we want them to go home so that they can start reinforcing, especially because we had this... oh, those are levies. I thought that was the garrison. When I was at war, we were looking at 277. I thought that was the garrison. So they may have been able to siege one of our property. But anyway, so once they go home and are disbanded, they can start reinforcing at a higher rate, so we'll get more men built up for our next war. We need to take care of Telemark. Telemark is going to hate us. The people don't like us very much, and we'll have to deal with that in the next episode. But for now, hey, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, consider clicking the like button. It really helps me out. Maybe click that subscribe button and make sure you come back for the next episode. So that's going to do it. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you next time.